Hello folks, and welcome back to another episode of Wheels of Mercury, the second ever episode of 2025. And this time your host Wheels is going to go over his most anticipated albums of 2025 with some hopefuls, meaning some bands that I would hope will drop new music this year. If you like what I do on YouTube, press the like button, press subscribe, ring the bell, do all that stuff, and tell me down below what is your most anticipated albums of 2025. Do all that stuff, tell me down below in the comments, and let's get started. First off is an album that will either be close to coming out or will be out by the time this video goes online. It's the Swedish heavy metal and speed metal band Century with their sophomore album Sign of the Storm releasing on January 24th. I really liked their first album. I forget the name of it right now, but I really liked their first album. It was a speedy mix of like Heavy Load, the Swedish cult heavy metal band Heavy Load, and like some Motorhead isms in there too. So yeah, if you like Motorhead and like old school heavy metal sound circa like 1982 and stuff like that, yeah, this album will be something to watch out for. Check out their previous stuff too, they're awesome. Next up is the first of many metalcore albums on this list, because this is gonna be the return of metalcore for me this year. Starting off with All That Remains with their album Antifragile coming out on January 31st. Now, this is All That Remains' first album in like 6 years since the untimely death of their lead guitarist Ollie Herbert. Rest in peace to him. In its place is Jason Richardson, formerly of Born of Osiris, and he has been proven to be a very worthy replacement for Ollie on the guitar. And I like all the singles that were released, including one that was a call out towards somebody. If you know, you know. But anyways, I'm very much looking forward to the new All That Remains album, one of my all-time favorite metalcore bands. Next up is the first record since 2018 for the Spanish dissonant black metal group called Délirant with their album Thoughteater releasing on February 14th. Now, this band used to be on Mystískaos records, which had bands like Antifragile, Scarface, Chaos Moon, and other bands of that sort of dissonant sort of, I hate to mention these guys, but Death Spell Omega influenced black metal. I'm very much looking forward to this Thoughteater album. It's in a black and yellow color scheme just like their last album from 2018 was. And the single sounds like a bunch of swarming bees, which is great for that style of black metal. Will be a great Valentine's Day treat. Next up is one of my all-time favorite bands, Killswitch Engage, with their album This Consequence, releasing February 21st. I did not review the last Killswitch album because other than the song The Signal Fire, which had Howard Jones, the former vocalist on it, one of the best ever songs ever, like that song is freaking killer. The 2019 album from Killswitch Engage didn't really impress me at all. It was more of the same, but they are one of my favorite bands for a reason. They were the first metalcore band I ever got into, and I mean, I gotta check them out. Like, they're one of my favorite bands of all time. I even have one of their albums as my back patch on my battle jacket. So they are a very, very important band for me. I'm going to check this new Killswitch album out. Welcome back, boys. Next up is Havukunu with their album Tavasland coming out February 28th. And these guys are a Finnish black metal band, which were my very first Finnish black metal band actually. They are such a good band. They sort of like mix in stuff like the old Finnish black metal sound with like some bassery like cleans in there and some triumphant melodies. They're just such a good mix of styles in their melodic, raw, cold black metal that it really stands out for me. I like all of her albums. Like, all of her albums are freaking killer. I'm really excited for this Tavasland album. And the last metalcore album in this list is Spirit Box with their album Tsunami Sea, which is releasing in March 7th. I liked Eternal Blue, but it did grow off of me. However, I'm really excited by the former bassist of Utterly Dying, Josh Gilbert, joining the band as their bassist and backup singer. Josh and Courtney sound great together, especially on the new single Perfect Soul. I love that chorus. It has been growing on me a lot. So I am looking forward to this album. I really am. They really impressed me and my dad when we saw them live opening up for Korn last summer. Yeah, I can't wait for the new Spirit Box album. Bring it on. Okay, so the next two albums are not metal albums, but I am so hyped for these two records. First off is Spelling, aka Krisha Cabral, with her album Portrait of My Heart releasing on March 28th. Holy moly. The Turning Wheel was one of my all-time favorite albums. It's become one of my all-time favorite albums. It's incredible. Her, like, sort of Kate Bush meets Mazzy Star sort of delivery. It's just so enchanting. And this is the first album full of original material, new original material, since The Turning Wheel back in 2021. But put an asterisk to that, as she did have a couple new songs on her 2022 reworked / redone album, sort of. It had like stuff from the past two albums at the time, like redone for her live band, and it had a couple of unreleased songs that were tacked onto it. This album now, Portrait of My Heart, is the first album with all new songs. What made me more excited is that Turnstile's guitarist, I forget his name, is on one of the songs, so I'm hyped for that. So yeah, oh my gosh, I hope this is as amazing as The Turning Wheel. And the single, the lead-off single for this album, I've already gotten stuck in my head. I can hear it in my head right now. It's just, oh, she's so good. And last but not least, is a band I've never really talked about on my channel before I did a short on them recently. And you're gonna see the short up here somewhere up here. Mumford & Sons with their album Rushmere, releasing also on March 28th. And this band has been one of the most important non-metal bands of my entire life. I have had entire memories associated with all songs from all of their albums. Little Lion Man, Babel, Watermind. There's so many great songs from Mumford & Sons, and I just don't get the sort of meme that they were boxed under when they spearheaded the whole like Americana, banjo, alternative rock sort of thing back in the early 2010s. Like, they were a trendsetter in that sort of category of music. Bands like Edward Sharpe and the Magnetic Zeros, of Monsters and Men from Iceland, bands like that would just pull from Mumford & Sons as an influence. They were just one of the most successful bands of the 2010s. This new album is gonna be their first record since 2018's Delta, and this comes after their banjo player, Marshall, left because of political disagreement, shall we say. Marcus actually said that he wanted to sort of push those disagreements aside and just welcome Marshall back into the fold. But Marshall was like, no, the damage has already been done. I'm good. I'm gonna go on my own now and do all the podcast stuff. It's a shame, man. It really is a shame. But I'm glad the three of them have decided to continue with the Mumford & Sons name. I hope they still reconvene with the former banjo player in the near future. Because the new song, while it is pretty good, the banjo playing doesn't really stand out like it used to. And that's because he's not really in the band. And with that fourth voice not really appearing anywhere, it's there's something missing without the banjo player's voice. Well, we'll see about this album. Marcus Mumford's voice is probably one of my favorite voices outside of rock and metal. His voice elicits such nostalgia for me of being younger and going to festivals and seeing them live in my hometown and just seeing people connect together because of their music. It's just incredible, man. So welcome back, Mumford & Sons. I've missed you a long time. And one of the most important non-metal bands of my entire life. Alright, that got a little deep. Let's get to the hopefuls. Mystískaos, which is one of Noise from Antifragile's other project. It's been a couple years since the last album. The last album sounded a lot like a certain Polish band, which I will not name. And that's good because I wanted to find a kind of a safer alternative to that Polish band that sounds like them, but doesn't have the baggage associated with them, right? I mean, it's been a couple years since the last Mystískaos album, and Noise is a busy bee. So, I mean, I pretty much anticipate a Mystískaos album this year or next year. Cause, you know, like I just said, he's a busy bee, working on projects all the time. Next up is a band that have not put out an album since 2018, and that is the Salt Lake City, Utah-based band Visigoth. These guys play basically US power metal in the sort of like kind of Iron Maiden, but it's more burly. It's more like Manowar. Man, like they haven't been putting out any new material since 2018. Like, where have they been? Like, gosh. I mean, Steel and Silver is an anthem, man. Yeah, I would love Visigoth to put out a new album this year. It's been too freaking long. Next up is actually not a band, but an artist from my favorite band of all time, Danny Worsnop of Asking Alexandria fame. Yeah, singer Danny Worsnop is supposedly, according to him, coming out with his third studio solo record. And just like the last two, it'll be in a country style. The last album, Shades of Blue, was actually an underrated favorite of mine that I did not end up talking about on Wheels of Mercury. I don't know, I know what happened. I didn't talk about. It has some great songs, like Little Did I Know, and some other songs like that too. And Danny's voice arguably fits more into that space than like Asking Alexandria kind of. Like, it's kind of unreal that a British singer would do that well at country, but he does it, and he does it really well. I mean, one of Asking Alexandria's early song titles was something like perhaps, maybe a Cowboy King. He probably foretold his destiny of being a country singer with that song title, let me tell ya. Anyways, alright, Danny Worsnop's new album. I hope it comes out this year. He says it's gonna come out this year, but hasn't put out a date yet. So, I'm looking forward to that. Ashen Spire. These guys put out my favorite metal album of 2022 and possibly my favorite metal album of the 2020 so far, Hostile Architecture. It was just a scathing commentary on late-stage capitalism and stuff like that, and the architectural designs that keep homeless people from sleeping in the streets and stuff like that. It's just a harrowing listen, and I still think about it to this day. There are lines from that album that still haunt me. This is a maybe for Ashen Spire, as they have a new bassist now, and I don't know if the album is even in the works or not, but it's been a few years since Hostile Architecture came out, so this is kind of a maybe. We'll see about this one. Next up is Broadside Sniper Squadron.
You mean Irish Slang? Oh yeah, I forgot. Oh, you can't mention that band because it's too offensive. Oh, that's okay. I'm going to let you make your video now, Mr. Mercury.
Anyways, this Irish-American band is rumored to have members of the Philadelphia-based Blackened punk metal band, Devilmaster. They play a style of Running Wild meets Thin Lizzy style melodic death metal. So I need this style of melodic death metal more without being problematic like that band that Eli Elliott just mentioned. I need new Bogside Sniper Squadron, man. Like, Hey, so apologies if I look like I'm in the Blair Witch Project, but I forgot to add one band to my list of hopefuls, and that is Deafheaven. Deafheaven haven't done anything since Infinite Granite got released back in 2021, but now they are signed to Roadrunner Records, and they released a teaser for their upcoming album last year, but nothing since. So whether that means they're working on the album, or they scrapped it, or they're actually working on it, we don't know. It remains to be seen. I'm gonna cross my fingers and hope that Deafheaven comes out with a new album on a new label, Roadrunner Records. Last and most importantly for me, there has been rumors, according to Necrotic Nick from Thralls of Metal, that the Japanese cult legend Intestine Baalism have been working on new music. If this album manages to come out, it will be their first album in 17 years. Yes, this is a wait longer than Tool fans had to wait for Fear Inoculum. This band's last album was all the way back in 2008. If you don't know them, they are a melodic death metal band where the death metal portion of the sound takes just as much precedent as the melodic portion. And they have been described before as melodic death metal for people who don't like typical melodic death metal like In Flames and Dark Tranquility. People who think that that sort of melodic death metal is way too flowery and way too much like dark power metal with growls, way too melodic. This band, Intestine Baalism, doesn't forget that they are a death metal band. A Banquet in the Darkness, Ultimate Instinct, and An Anatomy of the Beast are all killer albums that you should check out if you ever want good melodic death metal. These guys are killer. If they manage to put out this album, the moment it goes live, my scream will be so loud it will probably be heard for miles. Holy crap. Like, if this album comes out, it will make my entire year. Like, this is a band that should be touring the world with Carcass or Amon Amarth or At the Gate. But instead, they just flounder in obscurity in Asia, in Japan, where they're from. And that's not fair. They are so underrated still. And if you want good, heavy, brutal melodic death metal, check out Intestine Baalism. And if this album comes out, holy moly, oh my god, it'll make my entire year. It'll make my entire freaking year. Guaranteed. And that's a wrap for my most anticipated albums of 2025, plus some hopefuls in there. What are your most anticipated releases, albums, EPs, anything in music for this year? Let me down below in the comments. Rock on, guys, and I will see you in the next video.